Hello, everyone. My name is Raven Lancaster. I'm 32 years old, and I'm the woman who called the police on her own father and watched him get hauled away in handcuffs because of a car. Well, that's what most of my relatives say. They make it sound so simple. A car. What they never mention is the sound. Not the engine roar of my $265,000 Lamborghini Huracan. I'm talking about a different sound, the one that still lives in my head, the sharp crack of a baseball bat hitting glass, over and over while my mother cried on her own birthday. Before I dive into everything, I genuinely want to thank you for listening to my story. It's long, it's messy, and it's not one of those neat, feel-good family tales. But maybe, by the end, you'll understand why I did what I did, and whether you think I was right or I went too far, I want to hear it. I'm Raven, founder of Next8 Tech, a tech company based in San Jose, valued at around $14 million. That sounds impressive on paper, but what it really means is 6 years of sleepless nights, skipped meals, and waking up in a cold sweat, wondering if the next product launch, the next pivot, would be the one that killed the company. 2 months before all this happened, we finally closed a huge deal with a Silicon Valley partner. It was the kind of milestone my younger self used to daydream about when I was coding in coffee shops until closing. I promised myself one thing. When this finally works, you get to buy something just for you, not for the company, not for anyone else. So I did something impulsive and maybe a little ridiculous. I bought a Lamborghini Huracan, $265,000 worth of childhood posters and adult overcompensation. I told myself it was a reward, a symbol that my years of grinding meant something. I never imagined it would turn into the weapon my family used to tear each other apart. The story takes place in June 2024. It was a Thursday afternoon, hot and almost painfully bright. The kind of day where the sun makes everything look sharper than it should be. I left San Jose around 3 p.m., the Lambo humming beneath me, and headed to Fresno, to the house where I grew up. It was my mom's 60th birthday, a big milestone. She'd invited everyone, relatives from around Fresno, some coming in from nearby towns, old neighbors who'd watched us grow up. Around 40 guests, she'd said proudly on the phone. Raven, I want everyone to see you. I want them to see what my daughter has become. I remember laughing and telling her, Mom, it's your birthday, not my press conference. But I could hear the pride in her voice. And there's something about being the child your parents brag about that feels warm and heavy at the same time. As I got close to the house, the streets became familiar in that strange way where everything is the same, but smaller. I turned onto my parents' street, the engine echoing off old fences and trimmed lawns. When I pulled up in front of the house, I saw balloons tied to the porch railing, fairy lights hanging along the eaves, and cars packed on both sides of the street. The moment I turned off the engine, I noticed it. People on the porch and in the living room windows had already turned to stare. The Lamborghini is not a subtle car. Its engine sound is like announcing, "Attention everyone, the circus has arrived." I opened the door and stepped out, straightening my black blazer and feeling a little awkward in my own success. Aunt Betty was the first one out, eyes wide, hand covering her mouth. "Oh my God, Raven, is this yours?" Uncle Frank came right behind her, staring like he was looking at a UFO. "Raven, are you serious? This thing must cost, what, $250,000? I smiled, nodded, did the small, polite laugh successful people learn to use, so they don't look like they're bragging. I grabbed the bouquet I'd bought for Mom and the gift box sitting on the passenger seat. Inside, more relatives began filtering toward the door, half greeting me, half interrogating me. "What's the top speed? How much horsepower? How much did you pay? Is your company really doing that well?" I gave short, vague answers. Yes, the company's doing fine. Yes, it was expensive. No, I didn't memorize the top speed. What I really wanted was something simple. To hug my mom and remind her that no matter how insane my life got in San Jose, I'd always come home for her. Mom was standing in the living room when I walked in. She turned at the sound of the door, and her whole face softened in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Raven." She moved toward me faster than I expected for a woman in her 60s. I handed her the bouquet and the gift, and she just stared at them for a second, eyes glassy, before pulling me into a hug so tight it almost hurt. "You're here," she whispered in my ear, voice breaking. "I'm so happy you're here. Thank you." In that moment, Everything felt right. All the noise outside, the car, the money, none of it mattered as much as the way my mother's shoulders shook when she hugged me. But even as she held me, even as that warmth spread through my chest, I felt it. 2 cold spots in the room. My dad was in the corner, leaning against a sideboard with a glass of wine. His name is George, retired accountant, practical to a fault, the kind of man who sees the world in numbers and should. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't even pretending. He just watched me with this flat, unreadable stare that I'd come to know meant he was already building a case in his head. Near the food table stood my younger brother, Liam, head bent over his plate, not even glancing in my direction. No smile. No, hey, sis. Just the kind of pointed ignoring that might as well be a slap in the face. I knew exactly why. This wasn't the first time success had turned into a crime in their eyes. Growing up, Dad's definition of family was simple. You help. By you, he usually meant me. By help, he usually meant Liam. Liam, the dreamer with 1,000 ideas and no patience to follow through. The coffee shop he wanted to open. The failed courses he dropped out of. The opportunities that always needed a little more money. And me? I was the one who made it, which apparently meant my achievements were the family's communal property. Mom moved away to keep greeting guests, cheeks still glowing with happiness from my arrival. The second her back was turned, Dad put his glass down a little too hard on the side table and walked over to me. His eyes slid past the bouquet and the gift straight to the front door, where the Lamborghini was visible through the glass. "Did you just buy that car?" he asked, his voice already edged with accusation, not curiosity. I kept my tone calm. I've had years of practice. "Yes, Dad, I bought it about 2 months ago." He let out a low whistle that wasn't admiration. "Must be expensive, huh?" "There was a time I would have lied," said a vague number, tried to soften the blow, but I was tired of shrinking myself to make other people comfortable. "Close to 300,000, I said quietly. The change in his face was instant. The way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes narrowed like I'd just confessed to burning the house down. He stepped closer, voice rising. $300,000 for a car? Are you out of your mind?" Conversations around us started to dim, like someone slowly turning down the volume. I could feel people watching. "With that money, you could have helped your brother open his coffee shop," Dad continued, jabbing a finger toward the door. "He's been working his butt off just to pay rent, and you're out there throwing hundreds of thousands away on a toy." That familiar heaviness settled in my chest, the old mix of guilt and anger. It was always the same equation. Liam's struggles, Raven's success equals Raven's fault. I wanted to tell him about the nights I slept in the office, the times payroll almost didn't clear, the near collapse when a client pulled out at the last minute, the panic attacks I had quietly in bathroom stalls. But I also knew this wasn't about understanding, it was about control. "It's a reward I gave myself after 6 years of hard work," I said gently. "I've helped a lot, Dad. I just wanted something that was mine." He scoffed. "A reward is a vacation, a nicer couch, something for a few thousand, not a few 100,000. You're wasting money while your brother is scraping by." And right on cue, Liam appeared behind me, loose and unsteady, half a glass of wine in hand. "Dad's right," he said, not looking at me, just staring at the direction of the driveway. "You're so selfish, Raven. If you'd helped me, my life would be different by now." There it was, the script I knew by heart. I swallowed the words I wanted to say, the ones about all the times I'd bailed them both out quietly. Not today, not at Mom's birthday. So I walked away. I found a quieter corner with some of my parents' neighbors and talked about work, travel, silly things. I laughed when they joked. I watched Mom blow out her candles, her face lit by the glow of 60 tiny flames. I thought maybe, the tension would just fade into the background like it always did. For a while it did. Mom gave a little speech, thanking everyone for coming. When she mentioned me, her voice wobbled with pride. I saw the way some relatives exchanged looks as if my success was something they needed to dissect later, but Mom's smile was so genuine it made the room feel softer. For that first hour, I almost believed we'd get through the night without anything exploding. Then, about an hour into the party, I felt a presence beside me. Liam. His cheeks were flushed from the alcohol. His eyes were too bright. He lifted his half-finished glass toward me in a sloppy toast. "To the Queen of Next 8 Tech," he said with a crooked smile. I clinked my glass lightly against his, wary. "Thanks." He hesitated, then leaned in, smile sharpening. "Congrats on the new car, by the way. That thing is insane. Hey, let me borrow it, just for a lap around the neighborhood." There it was, the moment I would replay in my mind 1,000 times later. If I said yes, the risk would be the road. If I said no, the risk would be everything else. I looked at his glass, at his unsteady stance, at the way his pupils didn't quite focus, and my stomach dropped. Liam, I said slowly, carefully, you're drunk. That car is not a regular car. It's really powerful and hard to control. I can't let you drive it like this. Maybe another time when you're sober. His smile vanished. The anger didn't explode. It slithered in, cold and mean. Don't make excuses, he muttered. You're just selfish. He walked away, shoulders tense, and I watched him go, with a knot in my throat. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Because a few minutes later, he came back, and this time, he didn't come alone. Liam didn't come back alone. This time, he had Dad with him. I was sitting near the long table where Mom's neighbors were chatting about retirement and travel plans when I noticed the shift in the room. Conversations thinned out, eyes started drifting, and when I looked up, I saw them striding toward me, Liam weaving slightly, Dad walking with that tight, controlled fury I'd known since childhood. Raven, Liam said loudly, way louder than necessary. I'm asking you one more time. Let me borrow the car. Just one lap. People nearby turned to look. I could practically feel the curiosity ripple through the room. Oh, this should be good. I stood up slowly, smoothing my blazer, trying to appear calm, even though my stomach was twisting. Liam, I said, keeping my voice low, I already told you. You've been drinking. That car is not safe for you to handle right now. I can't let you drive it like this. He blinked at me. Twice, his smile gone. His jaw clenched. Before he could answer, Dad stepped in. His voice sliced through the air. Raven, it's just a car. Don't be so dramatic. He said the word dramatic, like it was a disease. What's wrong with letting your own brother drive it around the block once? The room was listening now. I could feel it. The weight of dozens of eyes on my face, on my clothes, on the invisible price tag of my life. I turned to Dad, trying to keep my tone respectful. Dad, it's not about being dramatic. Liam has had a lot to drink. That car is very powerful. If something happens, you fix it, he snapped. You're rich now, remember? A few relatives chuckled under their breath. Aunt Martha, his sister, was standing near the doorway, watching like she'd been waiting for this scene all night. Dad, I repeated more firmly, if he drives in this condition, he could hurt himself or someone else. It's not worth the risk. Dad's gaze hardened. You always have excuses. Always. He is your brother. He wants to try the car. You let him try the car. This is family, Raven, not your office where you get to give orders. That last line stung more than I expected. He said office like a dirty word. I opened my mouth to respond, but Liam cut in, raising his voice even more. Yeah, Raven, it's family. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? You live in San Jose with your pretty car and your fancy tech friends. We ask for one thing and suddenly we're the problem? He spread his arms like he was performing. Some of our cousins snickered, half drunk, half entertained. I took a breath, the way my therapist had taught me when arguments started spiraling. Inhale, exhale, don't match their volume, don't match their chaos. This isn't about sides, I said quietly. This is about safety. I am not handing a 600 horsepower car to someone who's been drinking all afternoon. I don't care if we're family. If something happened to you, I'd never forgive myself. For a second, I thought that might land. His eyes flickered, just for a heartbeat. But then Aunt Martha swooped in, voice dripping with fake concern. Raven, now that you're successful, you should be sharing with your family, not flaunting things in front of us. You've forgotten where you come from. Uncle Harold nodded, arms crossed. That's right. It's just letting him borrow the car. It's not like he's asking for the keys to your company. Their words didn't make me angry. They made me sad. They had watched me grow up. They'd watched me tutor their kids, help clean dishes at family parties, stay up all night studying to earn the scholarships that got me out of this town. And somehow, all of that had turned into ammunition. Before I could answer, someone else spoke. Hold on, a familiar, calm voice said. It was Mr. Peterson, the older man who'd lived next door to my parents for as long as I could remember. He stood up slowly from his chair, placing his drink down. I think Raven has a point, he said. Liam has been drinking. A lot. Letting him behind the wheel of that kind of car would be reckless. This isn't selfishness. It's common sense. Beside him, Mrs. Thompson nodded, lips pursed in disapproval, not at me, but at the situation. Exactly. These supercars are difficult to control even for sober, experienced drivers. Letting a drunk person drive is asking for a tragedy. For the first time that evening, I felt a small wave of relief. Someone else could see it. Someone else was willing to say it out loud. But Dad didn't soften. If anything, the support I got from the neighbors only sharpened his anger. He didn't like being contradicted, especially not in front of outsiders. The room's warmth drained away, replaced by a heaviness that pressed down on every conversation. People had stopped eating. The background music Mom put on earlier suddenly felt awkward, too cheerful for the tension crackling through the air. And then, like a thunderclap, "Enough!" Mom's voice exploded from the living room doorway. She stepped into the circle that had formed around us, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. The woman who had spent the entire day making everything perfect now stood there with her birthday sash slightly crooked, breathing hard. "What are you all doing?" she demanded, eyes darting from Dad to Liam to me. "This is my birthday. Why are you turning it into a circus?" Dad whirled toward her as if he'd just been waiting for a new target. "Can't you see what's happening, Brenda?" he shouted. "Your daughter is being selfish. It's just a car, and she's acting like it's more important than her own brother." Mom's gaze flicked to me for a second, then back to him. Something in her expression snapped. "That car," she said slowly, each word trembling, "belongs to her. She earned it. It is her decision whether she lends it or not. You are favoring Liam. Again." The word "again" hung in the air like smoke. It was like someone had ripped the lid off a pressure cooker. Dad took a step closer to Mom, eyes blazing. "I'm favoring Liam. You're the one who's always on Raven's side. You act like she's the only child you have. You brag about her to everyone and pretend he doesn't exist." Mom pushed past me, closing the distance between them until they were almost nose to nose. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I brag about her," she snapped, "because she worked herself to the bone to build something from nothing. And you? You've never once told her you're proud of her. Not once. All you see is what she didn't give you." The room went silent. You could hear glasses clink softly as someone set one down too fast. Dad's face twisted. "I'm divorcing you," he snarled. I think even he was surprised he said it out loud. No one moved, no one breathed. It felt like the entire house held its lungs. For a heartbeat, Mom stared at him like she hadn't quite processed the words. Then something broke in her face, not in a fragile way, but like a chain snapping. She laughed, a sharp, bitter, exhausted laugh that didn't sound like her at all. "Do it," she shot back. "I'm tired of you too. Today is my birthday. You're my husband, and you're the one ruining it." And with that, she turned around and walked away, lifting a hand to wipe it at tears she didn't want anyone to see. Watching her go, my chest tightened. A part of me wished I'd never driven that car here. Another part of me knew it was never really about the car. The Lamborghini was just the loudest excuse they'd ever had. After Mom left, the atmosphere went from tense to ugly. Dad spun back toward me, finger stabbing the air. "Do you see what you've done?" he growled. "You've ruined your mother's birthday. You've torn this family apart with your selfishness." Liam chimed in, drunk and triumphant. "That's right. If you'd just let me borrow the car, none of this would have happened. But no, Princess Raven had to protect her precious toy." Before I could answer, Mr. Peterson tried one last time to calm things down. "George, that's not fair," he said. "Raven did the right thing. Letting a drunk person drive is irresponsible. This is about safety." Mrs. Thompson added quietly, "You're taking this too far, George. You're making a scene. This isn't about who's more generous. It's about basic responsibility." Dad turned his fury on them. "From today," he spat, pointing at Mr. Peterson, "you are no longer my neighbor. I'm done with people who take her side against their own." You could feel the whole room recoil, the way people do when lightning strikes nearby. I thought that maybe, just maybe, after all the shouting, everyone would wear themselves out. That Dad would storm off to another room. That people would slowly drift back to the food and pretend nothing happened. But instead he went very, very quiet. His jaw flexed. His eyes went strangely flat. He looked at me, then toward the front of the house where the Lamborghini sat in the driveway. "Fine," he said, voice low and dangerous. "You all think she's right? You all think she did nothing wrong?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "Then I'll show you what happens when you spoil a selfish child." Before anyone could move, he turned on his heel and walked out of the living room. But he didn't go toward the front door. He went down the hallway, toward the back, toward the storage shed. A cold dread slid down my spine. I remembered being 16, standing in this same house, watching him smash my cheap phone with a hammer because I'd stayed out past curfew. I remembered the wild look in his eyes, the way he'd calm down afterward as if nothing had happened. This time, he wasn't angry about a phone. He was angry about a $265,000 symbol of my independence. No one moved, no one tried to stop him. 40 seconds passed, long enough for someone to make a choice. No one did. Then he came back. In his hand was a metal baseball bat. He didn't say a single word. He just walked past all of us, past the buffet, past the balloon arch, past the half-melted cake with Happy 60th Brenda written in pink icing, and headed straight for the front door. Through the glass, I could see the reflection. My father, shoulders squared, bat in hand, marching toward my car like a man going to war. My breath caught in my throat. "Dad, no," I whispered, but the word never reached him. He stepped into the yard, the porch light casting his shadow long and thin across the driveway. He lifted the bat, muscles tensing. I was already moving, but I was too far away. The first swing came down hard, and the sound of the shattering windshield was the sound of my life cracking open. The first swing didn't sound real. It wasn't just glass breaking, it was sharper, heavier, like reality itself had cracked. Guests gasped. Someone screamed. My body moved before my mind caught up. I shoved past chairs, past startled relatives, past Liam, who had the audacity to smirk, and ran toward the driveway. "Dad, stop!" I screamed, but it was swallowed by the second swing. Crash! Shards of laminated safety glass burst outward in a glittering spray across the hood. I reached the edge of the porch just in time to see the third swing cave in the windshield almost completely. The fourth dented the hood so deeply it folded like foil. The fifth shattered the left headlight. My Lamborghini Huracan, the miracle I thought I'd earned, crumpled under my father's rage while 40 guests watched, frozen. Dad wasn't yelling anymore. He was bellowing. "This is your punishment. You think you're better than us? You think you're too good to help your own brother?" Each accusation landed with another wild, brutal swing. Metal against metal. Glass against pavement. My heartbeat thundering in my ears. Behind me, I heard the rustle of phones being pulled out. Some people were filming. I felt a sudden twisting in my stomach. Disgust, humiliation, horror, and something else, a cold realization. These videos were evidence, not gossip, evidence. "Dad, please," I shouted again, voice cracking. "Stop, stop it." I was halfway down the steps when a hand gripped my arm. "Mom." Her fingers trembled as she held on to me, her breath ragged. But there were no tears, only shock and a kind of numb despair. "Raven," she whispered, voice thin. "He's gone mad." "No," I said quietly, swallowing the quiver in my throat. "He isn't mad. He's choosing this." I pulled free and took out my phone. My hand shook violently as I dialed 911. The operator answered, calm and professional. 911, what's your emergency?" I forced my voice to steady. "My name is Raven Lancaster. I'm at my parents' house in Fresno. My father is smashing my car with a baseball bat. I need police assistance for property destruction." I gave the address. She told me officers were on the way. When I hung up, my mom stared at me, wide-eyed, sick with pain, but she didn't say, "Don't do this." She didn't say, "He didn't mean it." She didn't say, "Stop." She just whispered, "Raven, when the police arrive, I won't step in. I promise." Her voice cracked on the last word. I nodded, touched her hand gently, then stepped aside as she leaned against the porch railing, devastated. Dad kept swinging, even after the windshield was nothing but dangling shards, even after the hood had caved inward, even after the bat started bending near the grip. He was panting hard, sweat dripping down his temple, but he didn't stop. He was fueled by something far uglier than anger, something deeper, older. He was punishing success, punishing independence, punishing me for standing up to him. "Think you're so smart? Think money makes you better? This is what happens to selfish children." Behind him, Liam egged him on, like a child at a playground fight. "That's right, Dad. Hit it harder. She deserves it." My breath hitched. The betrayal in Liam's voice hurt almost as much as the bat slamming the car. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Dad's swing slowed. One more, then another. Then he stood there, breathing hard, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. The Lamborghini no longer looked like a car. It looked like a crushed can. Dad dropped the bat onto the driveway with a hollow clank. He turned toward me. His eyes were cold, almost triumphant. "This is what happens," he said quietly, "when you forget who your family is." Then he walked back into the house like he'd done nothing more than mow the lawn. Mom let out a strangled sound beside me, a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. I put my hand over hers. Mom, this isn't your fault. She didn't answer. She just stared at the ruin in front of the house. The twisted metal, the shattered glass, glittering like horrible confetti, and shook her head in silence. About 5 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived, one male, one female. The moment they stepped out of the cruiser and saw the wreckage, their faces shifted into a mixture of professional, neutral, and stunned disbelief. The male officer approached me first. "Ma'am, are you the caller?" "Yes," I said. "I'm Raven Lancaster. That car is mine." He nodded, glancing at his partner before pulling out a notepad. "Can you walk me through what happened?" So I did. Every detail, every trigger, every refusal, every witness. My voice wavered sometimes, but never broke. One by one, witnesses corroborated it. Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Thompson, 2 cousins who looked sick with guilt, even Aunt Martha, who kept trying to soften Liam's involvement, but couldn't contradict the videos. Finally, the female officer walked into the house with a stern expression. 10 minutes later, she brought my father out in handcuffs. He saw me standing on the driveway, and for a moment, something fierce and hateful twisted across his face. "Well done," he hissed as he passed by. "Calling the cops on your own father. Ungrateful brat." I stood still, breathing through the rage in my chest. "Don't worry, Dad," I said calmly. "You'll be paying for the car, and the money I lent you in 2022 for your gambling debt." His whole body went rigid. His eyes snapped open wide, color drained from his face. You promised," he stammered, panic cracking through his voice. "You promised to keep that secret." I let the cold truth settle between us. "You broke the agreement the moment you destroyed my property." He stared at me like I had stabbed him. The officers guided him into the patrol car. He didn't look at Mom, didn't look at Liam, didn't look back at the house. The vehicle pulled away. And just like that, the man who raised me, the man who taught me multiplication tables, who took me fishing, who grounded me for being late, who never once said he was proud of me, was gone. Mom finally found her voice after the police car turned the corner. "Raven," she whispered, swallowing hard. "That money, the gambling debt, what happened?" So I told her about the secret casino trip, about the $100,000 loan he'd begged me for, about the signed agreement, about the fear in his voice when he asked me not to tell her. Mom didn't yell. She didn't cry. She just stepped back and stared at the ground, her voice barely more than breath. "You hid this from me too?" I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom." She walked away without saying anything else. The party dissolved after that. No music, no cake, no laughter. Guests drifted out of the house with pitying glances and hushed whispers. Liam tried to sneak past me to leave early, but I stepped in front of him. "Liam," I said softly, "do you remember the $80,000 I lent you for college?" His entire face drained of color. He froze. Wait, Raven, you said it was help. You said..." "It was a loan," I replied. "The papers are at my house in San Jose." His mouth fell open. His hands shook. He looked like a child caught stealing a candy bar, except the candy bar was $80,000. "Raven, please, don't do this. Please," he begged. "We're family." I stepped aside, voice colder than I intended. "Family doesn't cheer while your father destroys my life's work." Liam dropped to his knees, not out of remorse, but because he had no idea where he would find $80,000. I left him there, kneeling in the wreckage of his own choices. Dad called me repeatedly in the days that followed. I didn't answer a single time, because I knew exactly what he wanted. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not understanding. He wanted me to drop the charges, and that wasn't going to happen. I hired Ryan, one of Fresno's top lawyers, and filed for repayment of both loans and the full cost of the car. Relatives called to tell me I was shaming the family. I blocked their numbers. Mom and I spoke on the phone often, though she barely said a word about Dad. It felt like she was living with a stranger. 2 months later, the court date arrived. And that's where the next part of this story begins. 2 months later, I walked into the Fresno County Courthouse, knowing one thing with absolute clarity. No matter what happened in that room, my family would never be the same again. Mom walked a few steps behind me. She didn't sit with Dad or with me. She sat in the very back row, neutral, but not really. Her silence said everything. I took my seat beside my attorney, Ryan Hale, a man whose voice was calm enough to steady a tornado. Across the aisle, Dad sat stiffly next to his lawyer, jaw clenched, eyes refusing to meet mine. Liam was there too, pale, twitchy, sweat gathering at his temples. He avoided my gaze like it burned. The judge entered, a sharp-eyed woman in her early 50s, the kind of person who could silence a room just by inhaling. Everyone rose, then sat. The air was thick, suffocating, electric. This wasn't just a legal dispute. This was the autopsy of a family. The evidence unravels everything. Ryan presented the case methodically. Videos recorded by relatives and neighbors. Photos of the Lamborghini. Windshield shattered, hood dented, headlights smashed. Ravens signed loan documents. $100,000 to Dad, $80,000 to Liam. Statements from guests confirming the timeline and the escalation. Each piece of evidence felt like a punch to my ribs, not because it hurt me, because it showed, crystal clear, how far Dad had fallen. Dad's lawyer tried to argue temporary loss of control, painting him as a stressed retiree who reacted emotionally, not intentionally. But then Ryan played the video where Dad shouted, "This is punishment for you. You think you're better than me?" And then the video where the police asked him if he intended to destroy the car, and Dad replied, "It's discipline. I have the right to discipline my own child." The judge's eyebrows shot upward. That was when I knew. Dad had already lost. When I was called to testify, my chest tightened. I stood, took the oath, and sat down. "Ms. Lancaster," the judge said, "please describe in your own words what happened." My voice shook only once. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I spoke about the years of favoritism toward Liam. Dad's insistence that my success belonged to the entire family. Liam's drunken insistence on driving a 600-horsepower supercar. The public confrontation. Mom crying on her own birthday. Dad returning with a baseball bat. The 6 years of sacrifice behind that car. Every sleepless night, every risk, every bruise to my self-worth. The moment I realized I had to call 911, not because I wanted revenge, but because my father had lost control. Words tasted like iron in my mouth. I wasn't just recounting events. I was recounting the moment the idea of family snapped in half. The courtroom was silent when I finished. Even Dad didn't move. Then came Liam. He stumbled to the stand with the shakiness of a man who realized too late that actions have consequences. Ryan presented the loan papers. "Mr. Lancaster, is this your signature?" Liam swallowed hard. "Yes." "And did your sister give you $80,000 for college, which you never repaid?" "Yes." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Lancaster, your sister appears to have supported you repeatedly. Why did you accuse her of selfishness?" Liam's face crumbled. I don't know. I was drunk. I was stupid. I didn't think." The judge cut him off. "That much is clear." He sank into his chair, eyes glazed. When Dad stood and took the oath, something inside me twisted. This was the man who used to lift me onto his shoulders when I was little, who helped me with math homework, who once fixed my bike when I fell and scraped both knees. But the man sitting there today wasn't that father. He was defensive, bitter, and terrified. His lawyer prompted him, "Did you intend to cause this level of damage?" Dad clenched his fists. "I was disciplining my daughter. It's my right." The judge exhaled slowly. "Mr. Lancaster, destroying someone's vehicle with a baseball bat is not discipline. It is a criminal act." Dad snapped. "She ruined our family. She made me look bad in front of everyone. And she owes us. I raised her. The judge held up a hand. "That is enough." Dad froze mid-sentence. In that moment, the courtroom didn't see a father. They saw a man who had let jealousy corrode him from the inside out. After 2 tense hours, the judge delivered her ruling. Her voice was steady, cold, absolute. "George Lancaster, you intentionally destroyed your daughter's vehicle. You will pay $265,000 in damages, as assessed by the dealership. You will also repay the $100,000 loan, plus interest. Court fees and attorney fees apply. Furthermore, you will be placed on probation for 5 years." A tremor went through the courtroom. Mom covered her mouth. Liam pressed his palms into his eyes. Dad stood up abruptly, voice breaking. I don't have that kind of money. I'm on a pension." The judge didn't blink. "You own assets. You will sell them. You have 60 days. Then she looked toward Liam. "Liam Lancaster, you are to repay $80,000, plus bank interest rates for the loan your sister provided. You will also pay associated fees." Liam went pale. He shook violently. Dad sank back into his chair, defeated. The gavel struck. It was over. I walked out into the parking lot with Mom beside me. Neither of us spoke at first. The Fresno heat pressed down like a blanket. Finally, I turned to her. "Are you disappointed in me?" Mom wiped her cheek, but she wasn't crying this time. Her voice was small, tired, but steady. "A little sad," she admitted. "But disappointed? No. Raven. What happened had consequences. You didn't cause the destruction. You responded to it." She squeezed my hand. "I won't blame you for telling the truth." I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. We hugged, tightly, quietly. in the courthouse parking lot under the blazing California sun. I expected Dad and Liam to drag their feet, to fight the repayment, to delay it with excuses. Instead, nearly $500,000 arrived in my bank account all at once. The money felt cold, heavy, meaningless. Because money doesn't fix betrayal. It doesn't fix smashed windshields or shattered trust. It doesn't turn strangers back into family. But someone had to explain where that money came from. I didn't have to wait long. One Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, I froze. There stood Mom, 4 suitcases behind her, hair a little messy, eyes shining with tired hope. She smiled softly. "Raven, sweetie, would you mind renting me your spare bedroom?" And just like that, everything changed. For a moment, I just stood there. My mother, strong, meticulous, dignified, was standing on my doorstep with 4 suitcases and a smile that was equal parts weary and hopeful. Her voice was soft, but steady. "Raven, can you rent me a bedroom in your house?" It hit me like a slow, delayed wave. She wasn't visiting. She wasn't staying for a few nights. She was leaving her old life behind. I stepped forward and wrapped her in a hug so tight, she let out a small laugh against my shoulder. "Mom, come inside, please." I pulled her in, then hurried outside to drag her luggage in. 4 large suitcases, everything she owned, condensed into rolling boxes. When I brought the last one in, Mom looked around my home, the minimalist living room, the soft white lights, the sleek furniture, and she smiled with a mixture of pride and sadness. "You've built such a beautiful space, Raven," she said quietly. "A peaceful one." I gave her a faint smile. "Let's make it a peaceful one for both of us." The truth about the divorce. Once her bags were inside, I brewed her tea, chamomile, her favorite, and we sat at the kitchen table. She wrapped both hands around the mug, warming them. "Mom," I said softly, "please tell me everything." She took a long sip, her gaze drifting to the window. "After the trial," she began, breath trembling slightly, "your father and I barely spoke. We lived in the same house, but it felt like living with a ghost. Some nights he slept on the couch, some nights I did." I stayed silent. "It wasn't just the trial," she continued, voice thin but firm. "I realized something I had been ignoring for years." She looked at me then, really looked, her eyes glossy but strong. "Your father stopped loving us the way a husband or a parent should a long time ago. He loved control. He loved being right. He loved being the center of the house. But he didn't love us. Not anymore." She let out a breath she'd been holding for years. "So I filed for divorce." I covered her hand with mine. "I'm proud of you, Mom." She smiled weakly. "The judge split our assets 50-50. Your father was forced to sell the Fresno house to pay what he owed. He kept some of the proceeds to live on. I took my share and, well..." She looked around my living room again, eyes warming. "I chose to come here, to start over, to be near the one person who has never lied to me, never hurt me, never asked for more than I could give." Tears welled in my eyes. I blinked them back quickly. "Mom, you're welcome here for as long as you want. Forever, if you want." She laughed softly. "I don't need forever. Just a room and some peace." A year later, a new life takes shape. 1 year passed after that night. The night the bat hit the glass. The night everything changed. My days became quieter, gentler. Every morning, I woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee, Mom humming softly in the kitchen. She always made 2 cups, one for her, one for me. I started coming downstairs earlier just to sit with her before leaving for work. Some mornings, she'd turn from the stove with that same hopeful sparkle in her eyes. "Raven, you're 32. Have you thought about settling down? Getting married? I'd love to hold a grandchild while I'm still strong enough to chase them around." I'd laugh and dodge the question, but something warm stirred inside me each time she said it. Not readiness, not yet. But maybe one day. Work at Next 8 Tech continued growing. Investors called, partnerships expanded, recognition came, magazine features, podcasts, invitations to conferences. I achieved goals I once thought were impossible. But the nights were quieter, less celebratory, more reflective. Sometimes Mom and I would sit on the couch after dinner with the TV on low, neither of us really watching, and I'd feel something I hadn't felt in years. A safe home. Not perfect, not loud, not crowded with relatives who measured love in sacrifice and obligation. Just peaceful. The ghosts of the past. Dad never reached out, not once. I heard through distant relatives that he lived in a small rental apartment now. Lonely, bitter, convinced that I had destroyed the family. Liam, under the weight of debt and reality, kept his distance too. Some cousins whispered that he'd taken a second job. Others said he blamed me for ruining his life. I never responded to any of them, because I finally understood something. Family is not blood. Family is behavior. Blood makes you related, but behavior makes you family. And they hadn't behaved like family for a very long time. What I learned. A few months ago, I sat at my desk, cup of coffee on one side, half-finished project on the other, and I realized there were 3 truths I wanted to share with anyone listening. So here they are, from me to you. 1. Love doesn't mean accepting injustice. Love built on sacrifice from only one side is not love. It's exploitation wearing a sentimental mask. 2. Family is not an excuse for abuse. Being related to someone doesn't give them unlimited access to your life, your money, or your peace. If someone constantly hurts you, manipulates you, or sees your success as their entitlement, they have already stepped outside the circle of family. 3. What you've worked hard to build deserves protection, even from people you love. Not everyone who claps for your success wants the best for you, and not everyone who shares your blood will respect what you earned. Protect your accomplishments. Protect your boundaries. Protect your peace, even if it means standing alone for a while. So, was I wrong? To this day, people still gossip. Some say I did the right thing, that I set boundaries that should have been set years ago, that calling the police was the only option when violence entered the picture. Others whisper that I destroyed my own family, that I was heartless for suing my father, that I should have just let Liam drive the car to keep the peace. But peace built on fear and obedience isn't peace, it's silence. So now I ask you, the person hearing my story, was I the reason the family fell apart, or was I the only one willing to protect what was right? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And if my story moved you, if it made you think or feel or see a piece of yourself in it, please subscribe, like, and share it with others. Thank you for listening.